The last of the baby formula was gone. Amelia stared at the empty container, her chest tightening with a familiar, suffocating dread. Her daughter, Lily, barely 6 months old, stirred in her crib, a soft whimper escaping her lips. Amelia's own stomach growled, but that was secondary. Lily needed to eat. She glanced at her phone, the screen showing a pathetic $2.47 in her bank account. Rent was overdue, the eviction notice a stark white threat taped to her door. She had applied for dozens of jobs, but her lack of a recent degree and the gaping hole in her resume from Lily's birth made her virtually unemployable in the field she knew. Desperation clawed at her. She had tried every avenue, swallowed every last shred of her pride. There was only one person left, a distant cousin she barely knew, who had once mentioned working at a bank. It was a long shot, a humiliating plea for a small loan, but what choice did she have? Her fingers trembled as she typed out a message, her eyes blurring. "Hi, it's Amelia. I know this is out of the blue, but I'm in a really difficult spot. Lily needs formula, and I'm completely out of funds. Could you possibly spare $100? I'll pay you back as soon as I can. I promise." She hit send before she could second-guess herself, her face burning with shame. Almost immediately, her phone buzzed. A reply. Amelia's heart hammered. Had she been too blunt? Too pathetic? "Amelia? I'm afraid you have the wrong number. I'm not sure who you're trying to reach." Her breath hitched. Wrong number. Of course. Even her last, most desperate attempt was a failure. She stared at the message, a fresh wave of tears stinging her eyes. Then, another message came through, almost instantly. "However, I read your message. If you truly need formula for your child, please send me your address. I will arrange a delivery." Amelia blinked, reading the words again. It wasn't a joke. The tone was formal, almost clipped. Her first instinct was suspicion. Who would do that? But the image of Lily's hungry eyes, the gnawing emptiness in her own stomach, overshadowed caution. What did she have to lose? She typed out her address, a small, run-down apartment building on the outskirts of the city, and sent it. Less than an hour later, a sleek black car, the kind she usually only saw in movies, pulled up outside her building. An impeccably dressed man, his face stern and unsmiling, emerged from the passenger's side, carrying a large box. Amelia watched from her window, a knot of anxiety twisting in her stomach. This was too much. He knocked on her door, a polite but firm rap. Amelia hesitated, then opened it, clutching her worn robe tighter around her. "Amelia Hayes?" he asked, his voice deep and authoritative. She nodded, her throat suddenly dry. "I am Marcus Thorne's assistant. He asked me to deliver this." He gestured to the box, which was indeed filled with multiple large cans of premium baby formula, along with a stack of diapers and a few jars of baby food. "Marcus Thorne?" she repeated, the name unfamiliar. "Yes, he received your message. He also asked me to inform you that he has arranged for a year's supply of formula and diapers to be delivered to your address monthly. Additionally, he has transferred a sum of $5,000 to your bank account. He hopes this will alleviate your immediate concerns." Amelia's jaw dropped. $5,000? A year's supply of formula? This was insane. "But why?" she managed to stammer. The assistant's expression remained impassive. "Mr. Thorne believes everyone deserves a helping hand when they are in genuine need. He also included this." He handed her a crisp white envelope. "It contains his contact information. He would like to meet you, at your convenience, to discuss potential employment opportunities." Amelia took the envelope, her fingers numb. The assistant gave a curt nod, turned, and returned to the waiting car, which glided silently away. She stood there, the box of formula at her feet, the envelope in her hand, utterly bewildered. Marcus Thorne. The name echoed in her mind. He was a ghost, a benevolent stranger who had swept into her life like a whirlwind, turning her world upside down with an act of unimaginable generosity. She looked down at the envelope. Inside, a simple business card. Marcus Thorne, CEO, Thorne Industries. Thorne Industries. The name clicked. It was a massive conglomerate, a titan of industry. This wasn't just any wealthy man. This was the Marcus Thorne, a man whose name was synonymous with power and immense wealth. Her suspicion flared again. Why would a man like that, a CEO, be interested in her, a struggling single mother with nothing to offer? It made no sense. Days passed, filled with the surreal comfort of full formula cans and a bank account that no longer mocked her with its emptiness. Lily was thriving, her small face rounder, her cries less frequent. Amelia, however, remained on edge. The money felt like a loan she hadn't asked for, a debt she couldn't comprehend. Finally, fueled by a mix of gratitude and gnawing curiosity, she called the number on the business card. A polite secretary answered, and within minutes, Amelia found herself with an appointment at Thorne Industries for the following afternoon. The Thorne Industries building was a gleaming monument to corporate power, a skyscraper of glass and steel that seemed to pierce the clouds. Amelia felt utterly out of place in her best, but still modest, dress. The lobby was a symphony of hushed efficiency and expensive materials. She was led to a spacious office on the top floor, with panoramic views of the city. Marcus Thorne stood by the window, his back to her, a commanding silhouette against the bright sky. He was taller than she expected, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and a formidable presence. He turned as she entered, his gaze sharp and direct. His eyes, a striking shade of gray, held a depth that was both unnerving and compelling. He wasn't conventionally handsome, but his face possessed a rugged intensity, a gravitas that spoke of immense responsibility. "Amelia Hayes," he said, his voice the same deep timbre she'd heard from his assistant. "Thank you for coming." "Mr. Thorne," she replied, her voice a little shaky. I don't know how to thank you for your generosity, but I have to ask why." He gestured to a pair of leather chairs, inviting her to sit. He took the one opposite her, leaning back, his expression unreadable. "Let's be frank, Amelia. Your message was sent to my personal, private number, a number only a handful of people possess. It was an anomaly, a bizarre twist of fate." Amelia's brow furrowed. "But how?" "I just typed in a random number, hoping it was my cousin's." "Indeed," he said, a faint, almost imperceptible curve to his lips. "And yet, it landed on my phone. When I read your message, your desperation was palpable. The mention of your daughter, Lily, it resonated with me." He paused, his gaze drifting to the city skyline. "I am a man of considerable means, Amelia. Helping someone in genuine distress is not a burden to me. It is a choice. But your situation, specifically, stirred something within me." "What do you mean?" she asked, her suspicion returning. This was too vague, too noble. He looked back at her, his gray eyes piercing. "I lost my mother when I was very young. She was a single mother, much like yourself, struggling to make ends meet. She worked tirelessly, but life was relentlessly hard for her. I remember the fear in her eyes when food was scarce, the exhaustion etched on her face. She died when I was 10, from an illness that might have been treatable had we had the resources." Amelia's heart softened. The cold, impenetrable CEO suddenly seemed vulnerable. "When I read your message, detailing your need for formula for your child, it was as if I was seeing my mother all over again." He continued, his voice lower now. "The idea that a child might go hungry, that a mother might face that same crushing despair. I couldn't stand it. I made a promise to myself, long ago, that if I ever had the power, I would prevent others from experiencing what my mother and I did." A pang of guilt struck Amelia. She had been so quick to judge, to suspect ulterior motives. This man, for all his wealth and power, carried a deep, personal wound. "I'm so sorry about your mother," she said, genuinely. He nodded, a brief, tight movement. "Which brings us to the employment opportunity. Your resume, which I had my team pull from a recent job application you submitted, indicates a strong background in administrative management before your daughter's birth. I am in need of a personal assistant, someone meticulous and trustworthy. The role would be demanding, but it would provide you with a substantial income, benefits, and childcare assistance. Would you be interested?" Amelia was stunned. A personal assistant to Marcus Thorne? It was an unimaginable leap from her current reality. I would be very interested, Mr. Thorne." "Good," he said, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. "We will start a trial period next week. My assistant will go over the details with you." Over the next few weeks, Amelia found herself immersed in a world she never knew existed. Thorne Industries was a labyrinth of departments, each humming with activity. Marcus Thorne was a force of nature, decisive and relentless, but he was also fair, even thoughtful, in his dealings with his employees. Her role as his personal assistant was challenging, demanding long hours and meticulous attention to detail. She managed his schedule, filtered his calls, and organized his vast array of documents. She quickly discovered that beneath his stoic exterior, Marcus possessed a dry wit and a surprising capacity for quiet kindness. He never mentioned the initial loan, never brought up her past desperation. He treated her with respect, as a competent professional. Lily, meanwhile, was thriving at the company's state-of-the-art daycare facility, which Amelia had been unaware even existed until Marcus pointed it out. The convenience, the peace of mind, was invaluable. As Amelia settled into her new life, a new kind of tension began to emerge, not from within her, but from the periphery of Marcus's world. She noticed an increasing number of tense phone calls, hushed meetings, and a subtle shift in Marcus's usually unflappable demeanor. One afternoon, she overheard a fragment of a conversation between Marcus and his head of legal. "He's trying to strong-arm us, Marcus. He's fabricating evidence, trying to claim intellectual property infringement." Marcus's voice, usually calm, was laced with steel. "He won't succeed. I built this company from the ground up. I won't let Elias Davies tear it down." Amelia felt a shiver of unease. Elias Davies. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place it. She researched him that evening. Elias Davies was a former business partner of Marcus's, a man who had been ousted from Thorn Industries years ago due to unethical practices. He was known for his ruthlessness and a vengeful streak. The corporate battle escalated. Amelia saw the toll it was taking on Marcus. He worked even longer hours, his meals often forgotten. She found herself bringing him coffee, reminding him to eat, small gestures that transcended their professional relationship. She worried about him, a warmth spreading in her chest she hadn't felt in a long time. Then, the threat turned personal. One morning, Amelia arrived at her desk to find a police detective waiting for her. "Amelia Hayes?" the detective asked, his expression grave. "We have reason to believe you were involved in a data breach at Thorn Industries." Amelia's blood ran cold. "What? No, that's impossible. We have evidence of unauthorized access to sensitive company files traced to your login credentials," he stated, holding up a printout. "And a substantial sum of money was transferred from a company account to an offshore account under your name." "That's a lie." Amelia gasped, her mind reeling. "I would never." Marcus, alerted by the commotion, strode into the office, his face thunderous. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his voice cutting through the air. The detective explained the situation. Marcus listened, his jaw tight, his eyes never leaving Amelia's face. She met his gaze, her own filled with terror and desperate plea for him to believe her. "This is a blatant frame-up," Marcus declared, his voice dangerously low. "Amelia has been with me for weeks. She has no motive, and she is utterly trustworthy. Elias Davies is behind this. He's trying to discredit us, to weaken our position. We have to follow the evidence, Mr. Thorne," the detective insisted, though he seemed swayed by Marcus's conviction. "Then I will provide you with evidence that proves her innocence," Marcus said, turning to Amelia. "Amelia, I need you to trust me. Did you access any unusual files? Did you authorize any transfers?" "No, never," she cried, tears welling in her eyes. "I swear, Marcus, I didn't do any of this." He placed a reassuring hand on her arm, a gesture that sent a jolt of comfort through her. "I believe you. We'll get to the bottom of this." The next few days were a blur of legal meetings, frantic investigations, and mounting pressure. Amelia felt like she was trapped in a nightmare. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The fear of losing her job, of being separated from Lily, was unbearable. Marcus, however, was a rock. He stood by her, unwavering in his belief in her innocence. He deployed his vast resources, his legal team working tirelessly to uncover the truth. Amelia was touched by his fierce loyalty, a feeling she hadn't experienced since her parents died years ago. During one particularly late night at the office, as they reviewed security footage, Amelia noticed something. "Wait," she said, pointing at the screen. "Look at the timestamp here. That's late at night, after I've left. And that's not me. That person, they're wearing a hat, but their build is different." Marcus leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "You're right. The gait is wrong too. And the height. They discovered that Elias Davies had hired a former employee of Thorne Industries, a disgruntled IT specialist, to impersonate Amelia by using her login credentials, which he had stolen. The money transfer was a smokescreen, designed to implicate her directly. The real target was a highly sensitive project file, which Davies planned to use to undermine Thorne Industries' upcoming merger. Armed with this new evidence, Marcus confronted Elias Davies in a tense, high-stakes meeting in the Thorne Industries boardroom. Amelia sat beside him, her heart pounding, but also filled with a new sense of resolve. She was no longer just his assistant, she was his ally. Davies, smug and confident, initially denied everything. But when Marcus presented the irrefutable evidence, the security footage, the IP addresses, the confessions of his hired accomplices, Davies's facade crumbled. He was arrested on the spot, his corporate empire poised to collapse. The relief that washed over Amelia was immense, overwhelming. She looked at Marcus, her eyes shining with gratitude. "You saved me," she whispered. He met her gaze, his gray eyes softening. "We saved each other, Amelia. Your keen eye caught what my team missed." In the quiet aftermath, with the threat neutralized, a different kind of tension settled between them. It was a comfortable tension, a silent acknowledgement of the bond that had formed between them. One evening, Marcus invited Amelia and Lily to his private residence for dinner. It was a sprawling estate, elegant yet surprisingly warm. Lily, usually shy, took to Marcus immediately, gurgling happily as he held her, a gentle smile gracing his lips. As Amelia watched him, her heart swelled with a feeling she hadn't dared to name. He wasn't just a benefactor or a boss. He was kind, fiercely protective, and deeply honorable. And he looked at Lily with such tenderness, a tenderness that extended to her as well. "Amelia," he said, later that evening, after Lily had fallen asleep in her arms and he had walked them to the door. I feel something for you. Something more than professional respect. Something profound." Her breath hitched. "Marcus, I know it's fast," he interrupted, his gaze intense. "But I've never met anyone like you. Your strength, your resilience, your love for Lily, it's inspiring. And you've brought a light into my life that I thought was extinguished long ago." He reached out, gently cupping her cheek. "I want to be a part of your life, Amelia. A permanent part. I want to build a family with you and Lily." Tears streamed down her face. She leaned into his touch, her own hand covering his. "I want that too, Marcus. More than anything." He lowered his head, his lips finding hers in a tender, heartfelt kiss that sealed their unspoken promise. Months later, Amelia found herself standing beside Marcus in a sun-drenched garden, exchanging vows. Lily, now a playful toddler, clapped her hands from her perch in Marcus's mother's lap. Marcus's mother, Eleanor, was a beautiful woman with kind, expressive eyes. Amelia had met her shortly after the proposal. Eleanor, as Marcus had explained, had been deaf since birth, a fact that had often contributed to her isolation in a world ill-equipped to communicate with her. Marcus had learned sign language from a young age, a skill he used with effortless grace when speaking with his mother. Amelia, remembering Marcus's story about his own mother, had felt an immediate connection to Eleanor. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, she had secretly taken sign language lessons, driven by a desire to connect with Marcus's mother, to bridge the gap that language often created. Now, as the ceremony concluded, Amelia turned to Eleanor, a radiant smile on her face. She raised her hands, her fingers moving with a practiced, though still slightly hesitant, fluency. "Welcome to the family, Mother," she signed, her eyes shining with genuine affection. Eleanor's eyes widened in surprise, then filled with tears. A joyful, incredulous smile spread across her face. She reached out, pulling Amelia into a tight hug, signing back, "My daughter, my beautiful daughter." Marcus, watching the exchange, felt a wave of profound emotion wash over him. He knew Amelia had been learning, but to see her communicate so openly, so lovingly, with his mother, was a gift beyond measure. It was a testament to her generous spirit, her capacity for love. She wasn't just marrying him. She was embracing his entire world, his family, his past. He looked at Amelia, then at Lily, then at his mother, surrounded by the warmth of their new, unconventional family. The wrong number, the desperate text, had led him to this. to a love he hadn't dared to hope for, a family he thought he'd never have. A year later, Amelia, now Amelia Thorne, stood in Marcus's office, not as his assistant, but as his co-CEO. Her strategic insights and keen understanding of the company's operations had proven invaluable, and Marcus, ever the visionary, had recognized her talent. Lily, a bubbly 2-year-old, scampered around the spacious office, her laughter echoing through the room. Amelia watched Marcus sign a story to Lily, his hands moving with a fluid grace. Lily, who was learning sign language alongside spoken words, giggled, signing back a simple daddy. Amelia's heart swelled. She thought back to that desperate night, the empty formula can, the $2.47. She had been at rock bottom, pride shattered, hope dwindling. A wrong number, a desperate plea, had opened a door to a life she could never have imagined. A life filled with love, security, and a family that was more perfect than any dream. She had found not just a husband, but a true partner, a protector, and a future she had never dared to believe in.